Hello and welcome to another episode of American Werewolves, where we talk all things horror. I am your co-host Brandon.
And I am Jerry.
And we're here to talk about a small little independent horror movie that just came out a few days ago called Thanksgiving. If you have not heard of it, it is because it is strangely, it's not been marketed that much, honestly, but it has been getting some pretty good reviews, some good word of mouth lately. A slasher horror movie with a very old school tone about a tragedy that falls in this small town in Massachusetts. And a year later, after this Black Friday tragedy, there is a serial killer dressed as a pilgrim known as John Carver who goes around and starts getting revenge against the people that are connected to this said tragedy from a year prior. It is the latest film from Eli Roth. He's done movies like Hostel, Cabin Fever, The Green Inferno, Knock Knock, and he's got Borderlands coming up. Now, I guess I just want to ask you, Jerry, how were you feeling before you walked into this movie?
So, just watching the trailer prior to the film, I had a feeling of what I was getting into. The trailer, there are just some clips in the trailer that you know it's not a completely serious film. There is a ridiculousness to it that, we'll get into.
Have you watched an Eli Roth movie before this?
I have not.
Okay, so this was your introduction to him.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting how ridiculous it would get at moments.
Right. Well, that we'll get into. But before we get into the actual movie, I do want to kind of explain the backstory of this. For those that don't know, this film is actually based on a fake trailer from the film Grindhouse that came out on April 6, 2007. This was a double feature that was like a throwback homage to like drive-in movies from like the 60s and 70s, like those exploitation films. One was Planet Terror, directed by Robert Rodriguez. The other was Death Proof, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Between those films, there were a handful of fake trailers. And Thanksgiving is just the third movie based on just some of these fake trailers. The first one being Machete with Danny Trejo. That was a fake trailer in Grindhouse that actually ended up becoming a real movie.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. And that was just one that people, they thought it looked hilarious, it looked awesome, and it became a thing. Another one was Hobo with a Shotgun, which was a smaller film, but, it was still popular enough where they were like, yeah, let's give this guy the money to do a feature. And it had like a small little success in the indie scene back then. But Thanksgiving, that trailer, out of all of the trailers, that one seemed to be the most talked about, especially among horror fans. That was because there's not many slasher or horror movies on the Thanksgiving holidays. We have some for Halloween, with obviously Halloween, and we have a bunch with Christmas, with like Black Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night. But we never had like a proper Thanksgiving horror movie.
You missed the best one.
Which one's that?
It's a Wonderful Night.
For those who have not checked out our It's a Wonderful Knife review, go check it out. It should be up. Yeah, I mean, you could also kind of count, I guess, Thanksgiving, but I don't think anyone wants to count that.
I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Oh, Jerry, I have to show you. I have the clip actually ready for you because I had a feeling you would not know what that is.
I'll look at it right now.
I'm going to send it to you.
Killing. No, it's a series.
Yeah, it's a series. This is from Thanksgiving 3. Just watch this clip alone.
Okay.
This was what people had to turn to for a Thanksgiving horror classic.
What the fuck?
Damn, that was good. You just got stuffed.
Dude. Oh man. No, that movie's insane. It's about a time traveling turkey.
Shut the fuck up.
I am being dead ass serious. There are 3 of those movies. There might be 4.
That's amazing.
I had a feeling you'd like that. If anything, we should try to do like a watch along or commentary on it or something one of these days.
Oh, please.
That would be great. um, but we are not here to talk about that film. We are here to talk about Eli Roth's Thanksgiving. What's funny, you've seen the original trailer, right? Like a long time ago?
Yeah, I remember you showing it to me.
Yeah, yeah. So what's interesting about this one, like about this, is like while that trailer was more of like a throwback and homage to horror films from like the 70s and 80s era, this film feels like a 90s homage, which I think kind of benefits this movie. And I'll get to it in my pros. Before we get into it, I just want to say there will be spoilers spread throughout this review. There's just a few things in here that we just have to talk about with where this movie ends up by the end. If you've seen the movie or if you just don't care about spoilers, stick around and hang out with us. But right now I want to just jump into my pros. Off the bat, I want to say I think it's just cool now that we actually have like a Thanksgiving horror movie. And I would just say, like, regardless, out of all the Thanksgiving horror set movies, I would say this is probably the best one. At least it's the most notable one, or the most popular. I think this has potential to be very popular.
It's definitely an interesting, like you said, it's not something that we get often. Thanksgiving is a holiday that we don't get a ton of movies around.
Right.
So I think it's a very interesting time of year. It's a very interesting setting. I also love the autumn setting.
Yes.
I always think that is a great time to have an event. I just think it's a very pretty setting.
Yeah, it's not one to see often. It kind of like felt. It kind of had that Halloween aesthetic, except it was all the Thanksgiving decorations up all around.
Right.
But it was like that small town vibe, and I will say even with most of the characters, it kind of gives like a little Scream vibe, at least for the first movie when the teenagers got together and kind of were trying to solve this little mystery going on in their town.
Near the end, I thought for a moment I thought they were gonna do a little Scream thing.
I thought so too, honestly. Me and my friend that I went with, we were convinced that's where it was gonna go.
Yeah.
Another positive I want to say about the movie is that I think the kills are actually pretty fun here. Just with the opening scene alone, I think that set the movie up really well. Like, it showed you the tone, the ridiculous over the topness, the dark humor, the gruesome prosthetics. It really sets up the whole vibe for the film, I think.
Yeah, when it started, I wasn't entirely sure, and then the first kind of deaths started happening with the riot, and I was like, oh, okay, this is how this movie is going to be. I get it.
Yeah. It's funny that you haven't seen an Eli Roth movie before, because I feel like this really would have prepped you for what was to come. Mm-hmm. He has this weird style. Like, he's clearly a horror fan and he loves horror movies. Most of his movies are just homages to other movies, honestly. He's kind of like Tarantino with his films. But he executes it pretty well. And for most of his films, he has like this, this like over the top ridiculousness, this gruesomeness, along with a lot of dark humor. And I will say, in those other films, for the most part, they kind of fall inconsistent. But I felt like in this movie, it balances it better than his other films. I will just say that. And if you're not into the opening of this film, you are not going to be into the rest of the film and how it plays out. But I thought it was a lot of fun. It was so ridiculous, and they gave like the worst characters the most over the top Boston accents I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But other than that, the kills throughout, they're really fun. Honestly, compared to the original trailer, I expected them to be a little more gruesome and over the top, but it's actually pretty tamed compared to his other films.
I can't say much because I haven't really seen his other films. I thought it was kind of gruesome, but like I enjoyed how gruesome it was.
Yeah, it was like
yeah.
it was a fun gruesome. For most horror films, when you watch people die, sometimes it's just like more distressing than anything.
The parade scene
Yeah.
with the kid's grandpa, where he's driving the truck. And
Oh, that scene was awesome. I will say the first like major kill that happens, the one with the dumpster. I laughed pretty damn hard when that happened.
yeah, that's so the the first riot scene kind of sets you up and lets you know what you're getting into, but that death is like it makes it super clear.
Oh yeah, it's just and then the aftermath, how they find her body, it's just like, oh my god. But
That
I will
was
say the movie,
fucking funny.
yeah, I will say the movie does a good job at making you want these terrible people to die. Like that lady, I was like, please go, just please go.
Oh yeah,
And the fact that like she like murdered someone in the beginning of this film, and she got away with it, and they're just kind of walking around like, oh yeah, everything's fine. Like no,
Yeah.
no. So they did a good job at setting up these people to die. I think that's what makes it also so fun too. It's like these are clearly people you're not trying to root for. They're just cannon fodder.
I really liked the design of the killer. It was very simple, but I also thought
Yes.
it was pretty eerie.
Very,
Also,
yeah.
the plastic mask for me is something that is always really really interesting to me, in terms of killer design choice. One, because it's accessible and
Yes.
it makes sense, and if someone ever wanted to do it, please don't. You could always just go and buy a plastic mask, and it adds realism to it. But it was also very kind of V for Vendetta, and
Yeah.
I love the V for Vendetta suit, and so
Yeah,
that's
they
what
kind
it
of
kind
do
of
look. They kind of do look similar. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah.
That's
And so it reminded me of that.
Yeah, I think honestly, I want more plastic masks like that to be used in horror movies for killers. I think honestly, the whole nostalgia. If it was like a plastic mask set in a modern movie like this, I think that's just what makes it creepy, creepier. I don't know what it is. It just is creepier. But yeah, we should just definitely have more of that in these films. And I think this killer has the potential to be pretty iconic if we get more films and this one becomes popular, and if we spawn a franchise, there's potential for him to be another small horror icon. But we'll see. Only time will tell with that.
I want to get into that later.
Okay.
But yeah.
Also, I liked the killers. He had like a small sense of humor to him, which was pretty cool. Like the scene with the cat.
Yeah.
That one. Oh man, this movie. I will say, like, how was your theater? Because my theater was honestly cracking up the whole time and like cheering, like they were having a blast with this movie.
My theater is pretty empty, but I go to a theater when it's showing. Like my theater, I think only has like 10 theaters in it. So it's usually pretty quiet when I go to see films. Like when I went to see Saw, I think it was just me and like 3 other people.
No shit.
Inside of the theater itself. So I didn't really have a huge crowd. It was pretty quiet and when I went to see it. And for those listening, like I just came out of the movie like 30 minutes ago.
Wow, yeah, no. So this is like fresh in your mind and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall, like, so far with my pros, like, this is just really fun. It's not, there's nothing new here. This isn't original at all. It is a throwback to 90s slasher while also kind of doing its modern thing. And it's a pretty nice blend. It's a pretty good mix, I feel. And if you're into the genre, then you're going to love this movie. I think you're going to have a blast. And if you're not, then I don't see this really converting you, especially if you're squeamish, because, I mean, the kills can get pretty damn gruesome in here.
Yeah. I think my pros are very much the same as yours. I looking at my notes that I just quickly typed, it's pretty much all the same thing. In terms of did you have any characters that stuck out to you? And I think this is going to lead into the cons.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump straight into my cons, which is actually the first, is the characters. They are beyond forgettable to me.
Yeah. I didn't care for any
I
of them.
if I don't know anyone's name. I think one is Bobby, which is the ex-boyfriend, and the other is Jessica because they keep screaming it.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than that, I couldn't tell you who else is in this movie except that one TikTok star, Addison Rae. Which the cast themselves, it's fine. They're fine. They don't. They showed up. They did what they had to do. The characters are just forgettable. They. It seems like each of them kind of just have one personality trait, and that's pretty much it. And because of this, I feel like it was really easy to decipher who the killer was by the end for me.
There was one scene in particular that made me realize who it was, and I feel like we're kind of dancing around it. There are going to be spoilers in this review for those
Yeah,
listening.
I forgot.
So
Yeah, there are spoilers in here, but these are the major ones. So if you're still listening and you're really not wanting to know any of the hard spoilers, tune out now.
the scene where Jessica looks at the sheriff, played by Patrick Dempsey,
Yeah.
and asks, "Is there something that we can do to trick him? Is there a plan that we can set up because they're gonna have a Thanksgiving parade the next day?"
Yes.
Obviously, the parade doesn't go well, and the killer tricks them. The only way that would have happened is if he had an insider or if he was in the room with them. So it's very clear, and everybody who's in that room, the only person who really would have a motive is Patrick Dempsey, and that's because in the beginning of the film, where he bakes that woman a pie when he goes to her Thanksgiving dinner a year prior to the events of the film, and they're clearly like flirting, and then she dies later that night, and it's pretty clear that it's him.
Yeah, and it cuts to him like giving them a look. It looks like he's looking at both of them, but he's really just focusing on her.
Yeah.
Which also I gotta throw in. I love that the title card was the same as the fake trailer, with a little slight difference, but I love how it was still the same.
I love the title card. I thought that was so funny.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It looked like something somebody threw into like iMovie.
Yo, straight
just
up,
made
dude.
super quick.
But it adds to like the campiness of it all and the
Yeah.
over the topness. It was just awesome to see. And also one last thing, it's the casting alone of Patrick Dempsey that kind of gives it away. It's kind of similar to how like the casting of Matthew Lillard in Five Nights at Freddy's gave away to me what his role was going to be, because you don't just hire these actors who are well known in the horror community, both well known from Scream, to just be in these other horror films and just play a bit part. You expect them to kind of have a bigger role, so they're either the main hero or they're the villain, and it is pretty obvious in both movies that they are the villain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that as well. I will say, for a brief moment, and when I mentioned the how I thought they were going to do a Scream, is there's a love triangle in the film, and I thought for a moment that it was going to be Ryan and Bobby.
Both
Is that his name, Bobby?
boyfriends.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be them teaming up.
That would have actually been really crazy.
Yeah, because the whole film they hate each other, and it would have been for them to pretend to hate each other and wind up actually being the killers. Would have been a good side sweep.
Yeah, maybe not make much sense depending how you work it, but there was potential in that idea. It's crazy enough that it could work for movies like this.
But Bobby was, I knew it was Bobby, simply for the fact that Bobby's a short king, and the killer's kind of tall.
I will say, like, there are moments where they do a good enough job to throw in some other red herrings here and there, but they don't really last that long, because you kind of just go back to, I always kind of went back to my original pick.
Yeah, the red herrings that they do plant, they kind of, like, when they show the photo of Ryan with the security guard who died, and then immediately Ryan's like, a scene after, he's like,
or Adderall,
I was just buying Xanax off of him. Adderall off of him, and that shuts it down super quick. One thing I will say about the love triangle is I understand that it was a red herring, because you're like, it could possibly be Ryan, it could possibly be Bobby. I get the point of the red herring. I just didn't think it was executed super well, because neither of them, other than Bobby, but even then at the end, Bobby's like, all right, Bobby's like, all right, I'll text you. And that's it. He just leaves. But Ryan doesn't do anything like throughout the film. He's kind of just pointless. I feel like you could kind of not have him in the movie and it
he's
not really affect much.
He's clearly just there for a red herring and not a really good one.
Another con I had was that I understand that the film was supposed to be a little ridiculous. I just did think that the dialogue was kind of bad at points. Like in the beginning when they're all just like, when they get in the car, it's kind of like, it was kind of the issue that I had with It's a Wonderful Knife, where it was like, this is how teenagers talk. I just felt the dialogue was pretty atrocious at points.
Granted, like, it works for this style of filmmaking. But yeah, generally speaking, like, there's a lot of lines that stick out here where I'm just like, all right, that was just bad. And that goes back to like where with Eli Roth, where I can't tell if he's joking or if he's just trying to play it straight half the time. I mean, either way, it's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty. It can get pretty bad, but also like I think I let it slide a little bit because of just the nature of the film. I will say, I really, in the dinner scene, I really like the scene where Scuba and Jessica run away, and he kind of gets them in that, I don't know if it's like inside a wall, or if it's just like a really thin hallway. Before I get to my next con, just from the nature of that scene, I feel like if this movie came out in like the mid 2010s or like early 2010s, this would have been one of those films that they forced to make it 3D. Do you get that vibe? Where like every movie back then was coming out in 3D, like My Bloody Valentine, and maybe it's because they're both in acts, and that's kind of what I got out of it.
Thinking back on it now, like scenes like that, I can definitely see them going, "Hey, could you convert that to 3D? I know you didn't film it for 3D, but could you just convert it? We want more tickets, we want more money. Just do it, all right?"
Yeah, if we can sell this movie twice, and then
for some really shitty rendering.
Yeah. I think that's the only other con I have for the film is the ending.
The actual ending?
Yes. It just leaves it open, but I also feel like this isn't a movie that, and this is coming back to when I said we'll get into him becoming a horror icon or something later. This isn't a movie that needs a sequel. I don't think it's a movie that, I could be wrong, I don't think it's a movie that's going to get a sequel. Because it just doesn't need one. They left it very open because at the end, Patrick Dempsey's character, they're like, we can't find his body. And then they end it with her just having dreams that he's coming after her. But it's like, I don't know. It just felt very open-ended, but the movie also felt at the same time that it did what it needed to do. And I didn't like that it didn't really wrap anything up. It's the same issue that I have with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I'm super into the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but I think the ending is just shit because it leaves the idea of a continuation when there is none.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with, it had a similar vibe to My Bloody Valentine, the remake, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I get this movie is an homage to that, but I kind of wish, it was doing its own thing for so long. I thought it was going to be a little more clever with its ending. Like, I thought it was honestly going to end with them just, like, standing out there outside of the crime scene as the camera pulls away to the sky, fade out.
Yeah, I would have preferred that much more. Do you think if there is a sequel that it'll be
We should call it Thanksgiving Second Helpings.
Okay, I was going to say, do you think it would still be Thanksgiving, or would it be like St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, no. They would definitely keep it Thanksgiving, I think. Especially if they're going to try to stick with the remaining characters.
Would he wait a whole year to strike again? You think he's going to wait a whole year? Or is Patrick Dempsey going to walk around in a diaper and just start shooting people with arrows?
What would be cool, honestly, is, like, if he actually did die in that first movie, and this is just a new killer, and everyone is just thinking it's Patrick Dempsey's character.
Yeah, but we know it's not a new killer because
Yeah,
they're like, we can't find his body.
Yeah, no, they want to set it up for him. But imagine the opening of the second movie. We just focus on him. He's about to do his stalking, and then he gets murked by another person in a John Carver outfit. Then we start our movie. I don't know. There's so many fun things you can do with this, and I feel like now that you got like the homages and stuff out of the way, you can. If Eli Roth wanted to do another one, he can go in and do something fun and unique. I don't know exactly what the story would be. I'd be fine if this was the only one, but I'd also be fine if we got two more and then cut it off there, because as a slasher, you gotta have a sequel.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun with this movie. I think it's in my top 5 of horror movies this year. I'll place it third, just behind Evil Dead Rise and Talk to Me, from my personal.
I think I would do the same. Yeah, it would be 3 for me.
It's just so much fun, and I could definitely see myself watching this around Thanksgiving time again.
Yeah, it's definitely a rewatch for me. It's super. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It had its issues, like I said, dialogue.
Yeah.
But it is something I would definitely. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it again. But if it was on, or if someone was like, "I've never seen it," I would sit down and I would watch it again. That being said, though, I'm somebody who enjoys new stories, and it's rare for me to go back and re-watch something unless I really, really liked it, or if someone's like, I've never seen that, and, I'm going to sit down and watch it with them. I'm typically not somebody who is just sitting at home and go, I really want to watch this movie and re-watch it.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, but with this one, I'll wait till holidays. Like, if my friends haven't seen it, I'll be like, we have to get together and put this on. This is too good.
Yeah.
So out of 10, I give it an 8 out of 10 because it knew exactly what it was doing. It set out to just be a fun, campy slasher on Thanksgiving, and it succeeded in that. There are flaws that set it back a little, but overall, like, out of the slashers that have come out in the past few years, this is one of the better ones.
Yeah, I'll give it the same. I would say an 8 out of 10.
All right, well, that wraps it up for Thanksgiving. Thank you so much for sticking around for our review. Be sure to follow us and subscribe and keep a lookout for our other reviews coming out. Once again, I am your co-host, Brandon.
And I'm Jerry.
Stay spooky.